YouTube, it's your boy Sean Matrai here with a bit of a different style of video today. Today we are going over the best decks for the Triumphant Light event and the best decks in the game overall. This is the tier list. Also, so this is the best decks that you're going to get 5 in a row with. We're going to do a stream. Might be a bit earlier tonight. Might be around 6 p.m. EST. Might be a bit earlier than what most you're used to. So we're going to try to get 5 in a row tonight. Also, tomorrow we are doing the point battle Duel for Duel Links. That will be around, that'll be at 8:30 EST. So make sure you keep that in mind. Sorry about that. Make sure you keep that in mind. And yeah, let's get on to the tier list. Again, appreciate you guys for being here, watching, as always. Now, note I have the games currently side by side here. So once I show off the deck on the tier list, we're gonna go in the game, and then I'm gonna show you what the deck kind of looks like in the game for the decks that I own anyway. Other than that, I'll just discuss them. So for the ones that I don't own, I will discuss them. For the ones I do own, I will show you in game and why people are playing what they're playing. Okay. So first, on the first is let's go in reverse. Is Infirmate. Now I want to go this. I want to change this up a bit to my Duel Links style. So we're gonna go tier 1, and we're gonna go to Rogue here. And I'm gonna stop you here. I don't think there's enough in Pokemon to really start going further than this, honestly. Right now, and I don't think it's really worth it. But yeah. So at Rogue, I think I'm going to put Infirmate kind of at the highest Rogue right now. It's good. It's a good deck. There's 2 different variants of Infirmate. I don't have Infirmate at the moment, but there's 2 different variants of the deck. The one variant is with Charizard, which you would use Moltres EX to power up your Infirmate and your Charizard. You really need to get that set up, though, because that's really the only reliable way you're going to get stacking fire energy quite quickly. So you use your Infirmate. You deal 140 with 2 hits, which is quite good. However, you have to discard 2 energy after it attacks. But again, quick hit that will one-shot a Arceus. So that's very, very good with 140 HP on Arceus. So that will be a one-shot there. So overall, really, really good at that point. So yeah, I think that's solid. The other variant of Infirmate is to run it with Did I discuss with Charizard? Yeah, I did. But you also have on the back end, I didn't bring this up, you also have Charizard EX, which Charizard with 4 energy, obviously 200, and can one-shot pretty much anything. So, you know, you have that as an option. But that with Moltres can definitely get you some places. It's definitely a fun deck overall. So I'll put that here. I'm going to kind of categorize the Charizard kind of with the same thing. It's a little bit less. But the other variant of Infirmate, to bring it up, is the Infirmate variant with Arceus and Heatran is another variant. Again, where you're going to stall a bit on Heatran. And if they damage your Heatran, you get to hit for more damage, which is not always nice. You can also run Heatran with Arceus as well. And then you can set your Heatran Arceus, and that's also very good. So there's a lot of different variants that you can potentially use. Another advantage is Leafeon Celebi is still currently in the meta. So with that being said, there's always the fire weakness for plants there. So you always have the ability to gain a little bit more advantage in doing so on that front. So like I said, one Infirmate can one-shot without weakness Celebi and a Leafeon, because it's at 140. So you have that going for you as well. So yeah, fire decks kind of on the fringe because they're a little bit less reliable. That's the only reason why they're a little bit harder to set up. There needs to be more fire support in pocket, almost like Duel Links. But yeah, all right. Next down the line, we have Pachirisu. Now, Pachirisu is also a very good deck. I will kind of put it ahead of, like, I'm going to put it ahead back of the Charizard variant. I'm going to keep the Infirmate up here. It's more of like the main variant with Arceus and Heatran and whatnot. But right over here, we have Pachirisu. Pachirisu is good. It's kind of on the fringe of tier 3 and Rogue. But Again, it's very quick hitting. Basically, if you have a Pokemon tool and you do not know what Pachirisu does, and I will show you this deck because I have this in game. So, basically, if you do not know what Pachirisu does, if you have a Pokemon tool attached, you can deal 40 extra damage. Now, if you have a Rocky Helmet, your Pachirisu is essentially dealing 100 damage if they attack it. So, at that point, you're threatening to take out, like, early game basic Pokemon, so that's very good. You can also take out Executor EX in 2 hits because it has 160 health. Also, if you have Rocky Helmet and they start to attack it, then they will be able to be taken out if they were to potion it as well. So we even do like a double potion if they attacked it twice per se. But, you know, Pachirisu is quite good. It's fast. It's more of an aggressive deck. You're not really trying to play it for the long run. So an example of a deck is you can tech it as Zapdos. Some people like Zapdos because Zapdos is a 1 retreat cost, early hitting 30 damage Pokemon, which helps reduce their EXs to get you in Pachirisu range. Another way is you just play this deck with like 20 copies of trainers, so you run like 2 Sabrina, more 2 Cyrus, because then you damage things quite quickly to the point you want to retreat. You don't need Dawn necessarily. You can run blue if you want to take a little bit less damage, but I don't think it's that worth it overall. It's basically the reversal of Giovanni, but you could even run Geo in here, and then with Geo you hit for 110. So, you know, essentially with a Rocky Helmet and whatnot, and it also works with your Giant Cape as well. But with Giant Cape you're only hitting for 80, but overall it's still a really solid deck. You can even throw in some X speeds in here to make the retreat cost for free if you wanted to retreat into another Pachirisu and just keep under pressure and looping that. But that's pretty much what you're doing with this deck. Overall, quite strong. Nice deck to play. Very fun deck. And for that, we will put it in the middle of the row tier. Again, these decks are almost cutting tier 3. I think it's kind of here, but maybe it does find its way to tier 3. I just don't think it's quite there yet. Now, next is Skarmory. Now, Skarmory is, I still think over the Charizard variant, maybe. It's kind of like here. They're almost around the same spot, but Skarmory is overall a solid deck. The reason why you use, I have a deck limit, so I'll just discuss this. The reason why you use Skarmory is very good as if you have a Pokemon tool attached. You basically easily hit for a 1 cost 50, a 1 energy 50 damage, which is very, very good early on. So again, it's very, very good to just be setting up your Skarmory, doing all of your plays in that regard. And again, like I said before, with your Rocky Helmet, your Rocky Helmet will allow you to hit for 70, essentially, if they attack you. So again, that's really good as well. And then on top of that, you're generally playing a Magmazone package with your Skarmory. So overall, that becomes a lot stronger because that's already in the same package by itself. Easily being able to power up something like a 110 Magmazone when you're already putting pressure on with Skarmory. Again, it kind of requires you to draw into both the setups, but it's a little bit slower sometimes, but if you don't get to the Magmaton setup, but overall, just really, really solid deck to play. Now next, we have our Glaceon. Now Glaceon kind of gets mixed in with Palkia, mixed in with Articuno as the water decks that everyone's kind of playing, right? So you see people mixing Palkia with Glaceon, you see with Articuno. Again, water decks kind of got a big boost in general because of the addition of Arita. So Arita allows you to boost up. I can show you my Palkia deck here. It's a good example. There we go. Arita allows you to boost up by 40 damage to any Pokemon, not boost up, but heal 40 damage by any Pokemon that has water energy. So, first of all, Arita can heal all your damaged Pokemon with water energy, not just one. So it's a boost from Erica in that department. Another thing is, it doesn't have to be a water type Pokemon. So for example, if you play like a Palkia variant with, even some people have even tried Arceus because it's colorless and Manaphy can power up colorless Pokemon. It doesn't have to put energy on a water type Pokemon, it can put it on anything. So you can use Arita on that. You can also use Arita to power up Leafeon because that's been used, and we'll go into that more with the Leafeon Celebi build, which I'll show you. But that's been a reason why water decks have gotten the boost, as well as Glaceon, which some people have opted for over something like Articuno EX or Gyarados, which has been, Gyarados is kind of its own deck as well, but instead of that, just to get an evolution of Eevee. Also, before Glaceon came out, a lot of people were playing Vaporeon with the Palkia package because Vaporeon would use its ability to basically put an extra energy onto your Palkia, which you stack the Vaporeon up with Manaphy, and then you would be able to power up your Palkia and then smack them alongside a Misty. But the ability of Glaceon, well, not the ability, but the benefit, that's the word I'm looking for, to playing Glaceon, is Glaceon can also evolve over Eevee as well. So if you wanted to play like one Glaceon, one Vaporeon, which I know my friend Scyther KB was playing, my brother, go check his channel out, I'll leave it in the description below. That is a benefit for you to be playing, because then you still get the benefit of playing 2 Eevee without having to say, okay, well, Vaporeon's kind of a weaker attack, and it really doesn't leave you with too much of a backup option, other than for you to have Palkia there in the go. So again, Glaceon kind of fits in with everything else. I'll talk more about other variants of Palkia once we get to Palkia, but that's kind of where Glaceon fits in. I'm not really going to stick Glaceon itself on the tier list, but just kind of showing you where Glaceon fits in the meta. I'll talk about where each variant stands kind of when I get to Palkia, but yeah. But that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Next, we have EX Celebi, and I think this deck is a tier 3 deck. I still think this deck is quite strong because, again, while it's not as strong as it was because other decks are dominating the scene at the moment, EX is not a lot of fire going on in the meta, so I still think plant decks are quite strong. Obviously, there's a variant that I think is stronger, but EX Celebi is still really, really good. It was previously the best deck, and for good reason. EX is a stage 1 Pokemon to evolve over Executor, and you can hit for potentially 80 damage with just 1 energy. So by turn 3, you're already attacking if you had went first and opened up the EX, and you're already threatening to potentially one-shot a lot of basic Pokemon. Like, one that comes to mind is your Manaphy. Manaphy only has 50 HP, right? So you're already threatening to do that in its own right. Another one you're threatening is Skarmory. Skarmory only has 80 without a giant cape, so they specifically need to open cape rather than the Rocky Helmet. And if they don't open the giant cape, then you're potentially threatening the one-hit of Skarmory early on. So some of these basic Pokemon that really want to get hit early on. Another one is Eevee. Again, Eevee is another lead. Potentially they play in the water deck. So if you one-shot Eevee, that can sometimes end the game because they are not able to set up and evolve after that. And also one-shotting a Manaphy early on is also very, very dangerous. And also very good because, again, not allowing the water decks to set up, really get their game plan going, it makes it very dangerous. And even if they have the giant cape on Manaphy, it's not enough because that's at 70. So them putting a giant cape on to try to avoid them dying is not going to really work out for them. So very, very good at that front. EX is a threat. Now, on back end, you have Celebi. Now, Celebi kind of stacks itself on the back side. Again, in flip, for each head you flip, well, it is at least 2 energy because it requires 2 energy, including a plant energy, the other is colorless. And when it attacks, it deals 50 damage for each head you roll. So obviously it's a bit of a high roll card, but generally by luck, by probability aspects, if you get at least like 6 heads or something like that, and you generally need like 3 to one-shot most EX Pokemon, like Arceus without a cape is 140. Then you have, Dialga, which is 150, Palkia, which again is 150. So all of these generically commonly played EX Pokemon generally get one shot by a Celebi with 3 heads. So like I said, if you're able to stack 6 heads on this thing, then you were easily able to kill. Now, in the old way that people used to play this is with Superior, but I think Superior's been outclassed, and once we get to Leapion, I will talk to you about that. But overall, really, really solid deck in the meta. I think AEX Celebi kind of fits at the forefront of Tier 3. I think a lot of people have been taking this down a little bit too much, and yeah, I'll kind of keep it here for now. And also, yeah, okay, so there's that. So next we have Darkrai EX Weavile, and this deck is probably, I still think Darkrai is Tier 3. I still do. A lot of people are playing Darkrai. I still think it's a bit, I think it's that Weavile is more, I don't want to say the more reliable version, but it more commits to the EX Pokemon than some of the other versions of this deck. Now, there are multiple versions. There is versions that play Greninja alongside Drudgeon, and Drudgeon can really stall out the game for a while setting up Greninja, and then slowly burning your opponent to death, and maybe you put on a Rocky Helmet on the Drudgeon, so your opponent doesn't want to tag, and then you slowly power up the Darkrai to finish off your opponent. Now, in this variant, you want to damage them early on, and then evolve your Sneasel into your Weavile and start really hitting them. Because the advantage to Weaviles is 140, one energy attacking Pokemon, which is really good. Now, initially, the 20 damage may seem unappetizing, but again, you get to become 70 damage if your opponent's Pokemon has damage on it. So if you Darkrai damage them, you have your Sneasel into your Weavile, then bang, it comes out, and then suddenly you're hitting them for massive amounts of damage, which is 90 each turn, and then you consider the Darkrai involved, and then it becomes more of a headache for your opponent to deal with. The disadvantage to this build, I feel, is that you're committing a lot of EX Pokemon, and in cases you get one shot, it's harder to come back, I feel, and it's harder to safely retreat out into a non-EX, and at that point you're giving your opponent points, which I feel is a little bit of a disadvantage, but overall still really, really solid. Next we have Darkrai EX Greninja. I think this is a little bit ahead of the Weavile version. Again, this still needs setting up, but again, with the Water Shuriken, it can even damage both this Pokemon on the bench, which again sets up your Cyrus play so well. So does the Weavile. Again, both of these builds are using Cyrus. So overall, just really, really solid for Darkrai. Again, I will show you a bit of Darkrai. I'll show you the Magneton build. I don't have, well, actually, honestly, I don't have Darkrai set up. I have the Weavile build, so I'll look at this version. But if you want to throw Magneton in here, again, you need the Sneasels, you need the Weaviles, you need the Darkrai's. Again, if you're playing Pocket, what do I think? How would you just log into the game and say, hey, what's the cheapest deck for me to complete these events? How do I get to more cards in the event? I think, honestly, for me, I would aim to go for, if I was opening a pack and I said, I wanted to build something immediately and I wanted to get something competitive and something good, I think for a new player, the correct set to go into would probably be Space-Time Transcendence, because that's the pack, especially the Dialga pack, because that's going to allow you to get Darkrai, that's going to allow you to get access to your, well, Weavile's in the other pack, but you can Darkrai, your Dialga, and then once you're able to get at least one of those cards, maybe you get multiple. I still think if you get the Premium Pass, then you still have the ability to get access to the free Darkrai. I might be wrong, but anyway, if you get access to that Darkrai, then you're easily able to, build one of these variants and do very well with it. And another thing that's also really good is that if you can be able to get one of those Dialgas, then you can go for Dialga and then immediately divert to going into Triumphant Light and trying to get Arceus, and Arceus being very good in that front. So I think, like I said, that's really, 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 I think a good strategy for new players is to get in there. Also, you're able to get your Giant Caves and Rocky Helmets, which are staples into a lot of decks anyway, and your Cyruses. So good on that to get those staples early on, I feel. If you're a new player, you're saying, okay, what do I build to complete this event? Then this is ways that you can specifically think about it. And as you will see, as I get in, there are reasons that you really want Dialga, and I'm going to talk to you about it soon. Okay, next, you have Darkrai EX with Magneton. I think this is kind of the strongest variant of the deck. The reason why is Magnezone is a house. Magneton is very powerful if it gets set up early on. Obviously, because of its ability, it can stack energy from your energy zone onto it every turn. So it's free energy, and it only takes 3 energy to attack a Magnezone. And the discard also works really well if you want to play something like a Electivire Volcaneer decks, because if you discard an energy, whether you retreat or whether you attack with Magnezone, you're able to set up your Volcaneer, which can easily give you back 2 energy. Or if you're playing some other decks like Electivire, Electivire can allow you also with Magnezone to just get, as you saw in my other video. I will link all my videos in the description below if you want to check them out, and really deep in-depth descriptions of these decks. But Electivire essentially allows you to, with 4 energy, you have 2 more energy attached to the 2 energy that already has to attack with 40, can attack for 80 more damage, so suddenly it hits for 120. And since none of the Electivire builds are in EX Pokemon, then you essentially are threatening almost entry-level EX damage at the cost of only taking 1 point from them getting 1 point from you, I should say. So overall, really solid. Another, going back to this variant though, again, being able to stack up a Magneton, stacking your Darkrai up, burning your opponent becomes such a house to deal with for your opponent, and then they can't really keep up, and overall just becomes really, really solid. So yeah. Alright, next is Articuno. Again, Articuno, it kind of goes in, I'm going to kind of stuff this with the Palkia decks. It has its own deck too, and it's still kind of good, because Articuno with Manaphy setting itself up for 80 and then damage and 10 on the bench. I think this is kind of the back end of Tier 2. This might be like Tier 3. I don't know if this is better than Egg EX. It's kind of like fighting with Egg EX, where it's a little bit better, a little bit worse. But I think the thing with Articuno, which is really strong, is that it only takes 3 energy to attack. You don't have to... It may seem weak to say, hey, look, it only does 80 for 3. And you may say, oh, that's not that great. Well, when you take into account Misty and you take into account Manaphy, that can stack up and you're suddenly attacking a lot sooner than you would be. So don't really look too much into that 3 energy. Also, for 2 energy, including 1 Colorist, you can essentially attack with Ice Wing and start dealing 40. So again, this can attack very early on. That's a huge advantage for Articuno. And dealing 40 early on is pretty strong, because that sets up you to take out EX Pokemon. Now some people still play this with Palkia. Some people kind of play its own thing. This with Irida to kill it up. But overall, still solid. Overall. Now next, we're getting into some of the higher tier decks. Now, again, I think that anything with Arceus right now is just insanely strong. Some people have this down at like tier 3. I still think this is like a tier 2 deck, kind of a little bit ahead of Articuno. The best variant I have are coming up, but Arceus is really powerful right now, obviously, and for a lot of reasons. Arceus allows you essentially with 3 colorless energy to threaten 130 damage. So if you have 3 Pokemon on the bench, which you will, because if you're playing an Arceus build, you're going to stack up really easily, you will be hitting them for 130, which immediately takes out a Celebi without a cape. It puts a lot of pressure on Dialga, because if you're able to do like a Rocky Helmet onto it, then if Dialga attacks early on, then suddenly it's in Arceus range. So again, if like you Rocky Helmet anything, then that Dial goes into Arceus range without a cape. So does Palkia. It's really good to put a lot of pressure on the opponent. And also its ability, while it's unaffected by any special ability effects, well, not special, going back to Yu-Gi-Oh, unaffected by abilities. So Poison can't hit it, Sleep can't hit it, you know, all of those types of things, Paralyzed, cannot affect your Pokemon, which is really, really strong. And it kind of makes decks like that Weezing with Poison kind of a bit weaker now, because obviously you can't pick Arceus. But, you know, overall, yeah, really, really strong. It outclasses cards, obviously, like Wigglypuff, because now you can't put them to sleep. And putting your opponent to sleep with Psychic-type strategies also becomes null and void, because Arceus kind of invalidates that, and it's front and center of the meta at the moment. Okay, next we have Leafeon EX Celebi, and I think that this deck is really, really powerful. A little bit, maybe, does it get ahead of this or a little bit behind somewhere over here? Leafeon Celebi is really, really good because it is the better variant of Egg EX, in my opinion. Both are good, and both do have their strengths and weaknesses. The only weakness of Leafeon is not finding Leafeon fast enough, and not getting a Pokemon set up for the bench. But as to that, some people have decided to run 2 Celebi, and the reason why is because it makes it a bit easier to find an extra basic Pokemon that you can kind of smack on the bench, to make sure that you're powering something up with Leafeon at all points of the game. So Leafeon, in combination with that, really stacks up your Pokemon. You can use Erica, and you can use Arita with it. But you're going to say, Sean, how are you using Arita? It's not water. It's not a water Pokemon. Well, you know, Leafeon does not care about its other 2 energy. It only needs 1 plant energy to attack, as does Celebi. So again, as you may have seen in my video below, again, if you haven't, I'm going to link that below for you. And I'm going to go over that now, because I kind of like blanked out of going over the decks that I've had after going over the Darkrai. I'm going to go back over the Leafeon deck that I have here. Where are you? Now, where are you? There you are. So Leafeon allows you to essentially look like this. So again, if you have 1 Celebi, you can absolutely make this with 1 Celebi. If you say, oh, Sean, I only went eliminated, I only have a few packs of Mythical Island, I got lucky enough to pull a Celebi, play it with 1 Celebi. Or maybe a friend traded you a Celebi, play it with a Celebi. Then you can also run 2 Leafeon. So 2 Leafeon is kind of standard. You want to get that out of the new pack. 2 Eevee, you can use whatever one you want. You can use the generic Eevee or the continuous steps if you want to, for a little bit more RNG reliance. Pokemon, Pokeball. I like 2 communication because I want to see Leafeon EX as consistent as possible, valuing that consistency. 2 research, 2 Erica, and 2 Rita. Now make sure when you play this deck, do not select plant energy. Go down here and select water. And the reason why is, well, if you're playing the Rita variant. If you're not playing the Rita variant, then you can just play energy. But if you're playing the Rita variant, make sure you select water energy, because if you play the Rita variant, then you're going to want to use Rita to essentially give your Leafeon or Celebi's 40 heal health. Because again, they don't have to be water Pokemon, they just have to have water energy attached to it, which will be the case because your plant energy is coming from your Leafeon. So there's that in a nutshell. Okay? So next is our Palkia. So Palkia is, again, still a really strong tier 2. I still think this deck is tier 2. I think this deck is still really strong. The reason why is now players are not out to directly counter Palkia. I mean, you do have cards like Samudu, which will deal 70 to an EX anyway, but you're not always going to have Palkia in the active spot anyway. Palkia is very powerful because it always threatens a 150 dimensional storm. And there's a lot of ways to play with Palkia. One way you could play it is you could play it with even Arceus, which some people have been doing because, like I said before, Manaphy stacks onto Arceus and Palkia, and that works well. You could just swap out the EVs, because all EV is there for is if you're playing Vaporeon or you're playing it with Glaceon. If you're not playing either or, then you can just swap it out for Arceus if you wanted to, and that can work out just as well for you. Now, another way that you could do it is that, and then you just use the Misties to obviously power up your Palkia. Another way you could do it is that you could play Palkia with Glaceon or Articuno. And the advantage there, obviously, with Glaceon is if you're already playing one Vaporeon, like my boy Sty, you play the Glaceon, and then you power that up. Now, that variant, I do think, is probably a bit lower. It's kind of like, maybe, yeah. I know a lot of people are playing it with Glaceon on the Pokemon meta. Some people are, but I'm going to kind of include them all in the same spot. Again, I think there are a little bit of advantages and disadvantages to both, but overall. The reason why I still do like Glaceon and Articuno, and again, I'm going to kind of put maybe the Glaceon variant a little bit below the Articuno. I think the Articuno's a bit stronger. And the reason why is Articuno still threatens that early hit for 40, which Glaceon kind of does if you get to Misty, but it strengthens. Glaceon's hit is a lot more stronger, which is why it's kind of like it has that advantage. But the thing is, Articuno, if you fail roll a Misty, still hitting 40 early on is, to me, is really, really strong. And that puts it a little bit ahead. But they're kind of like all in the same spot. But Palkia overall, being able to be such a menace to threaten that one hit. And you always, every time with Palkia, always have to worry about the Misty. The Misty keeps this card trembling players in fear because, you know, if you 3-roll a Misty, then obviously you already have 4 energy, and then bang, they're getting one shot on pretty much any EX Pokemon without a cape. Dialga's one shot, Arceus is one shot, Celebi's one shot, Darkrai's one shot. So all the meta-defining Pokemon outside of something like Charizard or EX are getting one shot. So really, really strong. Yeah. Next is Lucario, and this deck is kind of like highest tier 2 or tier 1 at the moment. Again, I think that this is like a meta call at the moment. I wouldn't say that this is a deck that will consistently stay up here. The reason why it is good at the moment is because Arceus is in the meta. And Arceus is weak to fighting type damage. So you're using cards like, and I'm going to go over this in about a second for you guys. And we kind of explored this in the deck, but I don't think we really got any gameplay against Arceus too much in our video. But Arceus is the reason why you're playing this deck, because of Sun Voodoo is also an addition to this deck. And I don't know how you didn't get out of the deck, but you're about to find your way back into it. So a card, Pseudo Voodoo, I should say, not Sun Voodoo. Why do I keep saying Sun Voodoo? Hold on. Pseudo, here we go. Pseudo Voodoo. Let's take out a card just to make an example here. Not saying what's right, what's wrong, but I'm just trying to set an example. So, Pseudo Voodoo, brand new card. Basically, oh, it is in the deck. I don't know why I didn't see it before, but Pseudo Voodoo basically is an ability fighting Headbutt. So if they have an EX Pokemon in their active zone, this deals an extra 30 damage. So if they start out with a Dialga or an Arceus, which is an appropriate lead for them, then you're able to hit them for 50 damage. If you have a Lucario, well, Arceus will hit for 70. I should say Arceus will hit for 70 because of weakness. Arceus will hit for 70 because of weakness. Now, if you have Lucario, then all your Pseudo Voodoo is suddenly hitting for 70. If you have a Lucario and you hit an Arceus, then it's 90. So you can kind of see how fighting decks can hit for early damage in that right. Now, another advantage to playing fighting is that you have access to Granados, Rampardos, Fossil line. So Rampardos one-shots an Arceus instantly with Lucario because, well, not with Lucario, without Lucario, one-shots an Arceus because it's 140 weakness to fighting, so it's 150. So you one-shot instantly an Arceus EX. And on top of that, if you have Lucario, then you can one-shot it with a cape. So this is exactly why people are liking fighting decks at the current moment. Again, I will strongly stress that it's up here because of Arceus. If Arceus at 8 point gets toned down in the meta, then the fighting decks kind of go down there with it. If other decks rise up in the meta, then I feel like Lucario goes down. The weakness, the major weakness to fighting deck is that is no real way to, like, outside of like Brock, to really stack energy on early on. And you kind of get a little bit lost in the shuffle because the retreat costs are a little bit high. So if they press you early on or you don't have exactly the best opener, it can lead to some slower gameplay, which can be outpacing you. So just keep that in mind when you're playing fighting decks. Now, I still think the best deck right now, and I'm going to put this in the tier 1 slot, Lucario is kind of like very close to being up there, but it's kind of like the highest tier 2, is Arceus Dialga. This deck is a menace right now in the meta. because it's got so much going for it, and Dialga has finally got its time to shine, as I thought it would in my free box. The reason why is there's a lot of ways to play this, but this I think is the best variant. One of the benefits is running Mew. And now let me explain why Mew is good. Mew is good because it has an effect, is an attacking ability. When it attacks, it has genome mapping, which can essentially steal your opponent's attack. Now, it won't steal their ability, so if you attack a Darkrai, you're not going to be able to use its ability against it. Well, not that you would, because you have plus energy to that. But you get my point. It steals the attack, not the ability. Okay? So, again, if you were to use Mew, and you were to attack something like a Palkia, you take that attack, which makes Mew so good, which is why I think people really want to play Mew, because of Palkia, you essentially three-dimensional storm them right back. So if you go up against Palkia, Manaphy, setting up a Mew could be very dangerous for them, because now they have to start playing weird around your Mew EX, because they have to fear that you're going to one-shot them right back. So, making Mew quite a force. Now you may say, well, Side Shot requires Psychic Energy. You are never playing this deck with Psychic Energy if you're running Mew. You are playing it with Metal only, because you're using it for its second ability, which Genome Mapping requires only 3 colorless energy, which is what makes Mew the house it is right at the moment. Now Dialga, if you don't know what this card does, and you've been under a rock, Dialga basically hits for 100 for energy, and you may say, well, that's terrible. 2 colorless to steal energy, and you may say, oh, that's actually terrible. Well, you're not really looking, you're not really trying to hit the Dialga for 100. What you're trying to use Dialga for is its first ability, which hits for 30 with 2, but then stacks 2 energy on the back end of any Pokemon. So you stick 2 steal energy on any Pokemon on the bench, and then at that point, it has a whopping 150 HP, so with a giant cape, it's at 170, and it becomes very hard to take out, can't be really one shot. And then the Metallic Turbo, again, sticking energy on your Arceus, which Arceus is completely colorless. Now, also, if you've been under a rock and you don't know what Arceus does, or you're just a new player, Arceus EX is a force, because it has Fable Luster. Like I said, it's not affected by special conditions. I discussed this a bit before, but Arceus hits 3 colorless for 70 plus, but like I said, for each Pokemon you have in the bench, it deals an additional 20 damage. So if you have 1, it's 90, 2 is 110, and then 3, which is what you're going to be hitting for a majority of the time, is going to be 130, and then that 130 hit can really be damaging, especially if you're able to hit them and damage them with Dialga early on. That can lead to you one-shotting most EX Pokemon at that point, unless they have like Cape or something else. But you might be holding the Arceus till later in the game anyway, and then at that point, even by getting that 30 damage on Dialga, or potentially setting up like Cyrus plays and stuff like that if you wanted to go down that route. So overall, really, really strong in that department. On top of it, there's also Shaman, which people do run in this deck. Shaman is very, very strong because while on the bench, it makes the retreat of active Pokemon, basic active Pokemon, 1 less. So essentially, you have a permanent X speed on the bench, and then you are able to retreat, since every one of your Pokemon, Mew, Dialga, Arceus, are all basic. You can retreat them for 1 less. So yeah. Okay, so that's my video on the tier list. I really hope you enjoyed it. That's pretty much that. Again, this is my overview of the game right now, where the meta stands. Please let me know if you have any differentiating opinions. I would love to hear your opinions. Maybe I missed a deck. Maybe there's a deck that you value on the tier list. I'd love to hear your opinions. Now, one of the things I did for Yu-Gi-Oh! So heavily is I made a community tier list. I would love to get everyone involved, and we can make one together in Pokemon. This is kind of my tier list, but if you guys want to join me in stream and we make one together, I think that would be a fun, very fun activity that we can all do together. And I think that would be really nice. So, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, sub, as always. Stream later on today. Make sure you're there. I would love to have you there. We're going to be getting for our 5 wins in a row on stream. I don't want to do this on a video because I feel like on a video, I can't save replays. So if I were to do this off stream, then I'm not going to really be able to show you the highlights of it, and I'd rather experience the highlights with you. So we're going to do this on stream. Until next time, it's your boy Sean Matrai, signing out. Peace.